The super sewer as currently envisaged will be very destructive to construct. It will cost simply billions of pounds, and so it's been Hammersmith and Fulham Council's contention that there are other more environmentally friendly ways of dealing with the problems of sewer discharges. Just take one aspect of this project. The Cllr Road area in the south of Fulham will be totally devastated as a main tunnelling site for something up to 10 years, certainly a minimum of 7 years and possibly as many as 10 years. This will have a really bad adverse effect on the area. There's 2 schools that are within a couple of hundred yards. Thousands of people live within a quarter of a mile. So it's our contention that this isn't the right way to solve the problems of sewer discharges. And if we look at what's going on in Philadelphia at the moment, where they have similar problems, they actually receive more rainfall and it comes in bigger lumps, so to speak. But Philadelphia has concluded that a deep tunnel storage solution, like the super sewer, is not the way to solve this problem. There are better, more environmentally, socially and economically better solutions. The Tri-borough initiative is really important for our borough. We are living in unprecedented times at the moment, and we have to save every penny we can in order to balance our books and to make sure that our taxes don't rise. And Tri-borough is a way of spreading the management, senior management and middle management across our 3 boroughs. So therefore we save money in having less individual management for each of the boroughs. And also we gain from doing this because the best practices in boroughs are being identified, and therefore we can all adopt the best practice. So that's good for the service delivery as well. So I would say that Tri-borough is a really radical initiative which ensures that taxes will remain low in Hammersmith and Fulham as they are in Kensington, Chelsea and City of Westminster. It's our contention in Hammersmith and Fulham, and literally thousands of our residents are affected by aircraft noise already, that Heathrow Airport is really in the wrong location. A decision was made at the end of World War II to locate the main London airport at Heathrow. However, things have moved on since then, and there are now something like 500,000 flights a year which use the current 2 runways. You need to be a proper hub airport, 4 runways. That's to provide resilience, so when the weather's bad you don't have to cancel lots of flights, but it's also to allow for the future growth of your hub. At Heathrow that just isn't possible, and even if it were possible, to double the runway capacity when already millions of people in West London experience aircraft noise would be unthinkable. Another thing is you've got to run a hub 24 hours a day. Currently Heathrow closes between 11 and 6 a.m, almost closes. There are some flights which come in, but there are certainly not as many. And that again is something you could not relax. You've got to have a period during the night when no flights come into Heathrow. So our view is that Heathrow is in the wrong location and that a new hub airport needs to be created, preferably to the east of London, because that would disturb far fewer people. Because of the history of Hammersmith and Fulham, we have some legacy sites on our side of the borough boundary which are absolutely enormous. For instance, the White City area, which was formerly the site of the Empire Exhibition of 1908 and also the Olympic Games around that time. That area is essentially still to this day used for warehouses and sheds and sort of semi-commercial activities. So we have this enormous opportunity to redevelop these areas, regenerate them, to provide thousands of new homes and thousands of new jobs. What we must do, though, is make sure that our existing residents benefit from this process, because we have areas of significant poverty in Hammersmith and Fulham, particularly around the White City area. So we must make sure that these new zones, these new residential areas, work to the benefit of the existing locations as well. So that means planning new roads, planning new facilities, new schools, new healthcare facilities, etc. But I'm convinced that we can do that, and that these areas, such as White City, will provide an amazing lift to our economy going forward. Well, a couple of years back, my Christmas was totally and utterly disrupted by the threat of, or the possibility that the Hammersmith Flyover might fall down, or indeed that Transport for London would have to dismantle it over the New Year holiday because it was unsafe. We've now moved on from that, and there are projects in place, some of which has already been carried out, to strengthen the Hammersmith Flyover, and so therefore to guarantee its life into the future. And so whilst it's safe for the next few years, I do think it is right to plan for a time when we seek a replacement for this structure. It was built in 1959, 1960. It's over 50 years old, and it's not the sort of project that we would now class as acceptable. It marches its way through the centre of Hammersmith, creating a swathe of destruction and urban decay, and we are keen to just look at the alternatives, and clearly the biggest alternative is to sink the road into a cut and cover tunnel. Where it can't be cut and covered, where the railway line is, it would have to be bored, but we're looking at that as a realistic option. They do this in other cities around Europe and America. There's absolutely no reason why we can't do it here. And the win would be clearly to remove the noise and dirt of the road, but also it would release a lot of new land for new development, and it would reunite Hammersmith with its riverside. That connection was lost when the road was built in the 1950s. Well, I have to declare a personal interest here because I use the district line quite frequently early in the morning, and I can certainly attest that congestion is a real problem, and it's holding back Fulham South Fulham as an attractive location, quite frankly. So we're very concerned about improving the district line. We were disappointed, I have to say, to hear that the new S-Class trains, which have much bigger capacities, they have walk-through carriages, were being introduced on other lines, such as the Metropolitan and the Hammersmith and City and the Circle line, before they're being introduced on the district line. We think this is a very poor decision, but unfortunately there's very little we can do about it now. In 2014, the district line Wimbledon branch will get new S-Class trains, and until then we've got to make sure that we put as much pressure on TfL to use the existing stock in the most efficient way during the morning period. Originally, the Crossrail 2 proposal was to take the Wimbledon branch of the district line through to Fulham Broadway, and to then create new tunnels through Chelsea and join up with another existing line once it had got to the other side of London. However, it appears now that the studies which are being done suggest that a better option for London as a whole would be to take the surface railways coming from Richmond and Kingston and turn those into the southwest branch of Crossrail 2. Clearly none of those lines at the moment go anywhere near South Fulham, so it would appear that we are unlikely to be able to have a Crossrail 2 station. However, we haven't quite given up hope. We do think that there is merits in turning north after Clapham Junction and coming through the southern end of Fulham before following a route through Chelsea. So whilst it's not the favoured route at the moment, the council will still be campaigning to have a Crossrail 2 station in South Fulham. I believe it's very important for football to remain at Stamford Bridge. Stamford Bridge is the historic home of Chelsea Football Club, and we believe that that is where the best opportunities exist to expand the ground to meet the demands of the 21st century. It really isn't possible for Chelsea to find a new home within a couple of miles of Stamford Bridge. There are development sites, but it is extremely unlikely that any of them will prove feasible. And so we believe that Chelsea has no option but to remain at Stamford Bridge, and as a council we are prepared to help them rebuild their ground and reconfigure their ground. Clearly we're not going to sanction something which would lead to the destruction of vast amounts of Fulham housing, but equally we believe there are interesting solutions to the problems that Chelsea will find themselves facing trying to expand. Well, BBC Television has been associated with Wood Lane in Shepherd's Bush for almost 60 years, I think. So it was with some disappointment that we heard of the plans a few years back to move a certain amount of programme making facilities and studios to other locations. However, a certain amount of BBC TV will still be located in Wood Lane. They're still keeping the iconic #1 studio, but a lot of the television centre, the question mark, will be redeveloped as housing, hotel, other business areas and zones, restaurants. So it's an opportunity to have new houses and new jobs in this location, and also to open up the whole complex, because at the moment it's a bit like a fortress. You can't actually get in through the front door because there's a great big security railings and officious security guards who will keep you out. Our plans, or the plans which are emerging, suggest a much more open complex where people will be able to walk straight through and access the new housing and the new restaurants. And so I think the overall end result will be good for the area. But there's still a bit of disappointment that a lot of BBC TV is moving out of its historic home.